Okay, Courtney. Okay, if you can hear me, hopefully you can. I'm recording this. I know you can't see it, so I'm recording it so you can go back and watch it. All right, first thing you have to do on this one is you have to finish the equation on top. Can you guys use a different color ink to correct yourself? Okay, so finish the equation for me. Yes, ma'am. Yes, go to the restroom. All right, so photosynthesis, 6 CO2 plus 6 H2O plus some light energy yields what? C6, H12, good, plus what? What's the end of photosynthesis, y'all? 6O2. All right, cool. So what organelle are we using here? In photosynthesis, what organelle? Good. All right, so what was the first step of photosynthesis? Step 1. You guys have a word bank, so what's step 1? Good. Light-dependent reactions. Cool. Light-dependent reactions produce what? For the second part. What are we going to make? Say it again? No. ATP. Good. So close. All right, so what's the second part? Courtney, I know you can't see the screen. I totally get that. I have to record it, and then you have to watch it later. Let me know if you can hear me. All right. What's the second part? So light-dependent reactions are going to fuel what? I hear you. Say it louder. Good. Now we have to try to figure out how we're going to put all of that. Independent reactions. That's not pretty. Light independent reactions. What's another name for the light independent reactions? Starts with C. The Calvin cycle. Okay. What must the Calvin cycle use, or the light independent reactions? What must it use? What's used? CO2. So we got to use carbon dioxide in the light independent reactions. So we get the ATP from the light dependent reactions, right? So we get that fuel, plus we're going to use CO2. Now what is the ultimate purpose? What are we going to make? C6H what? H2O?
H12.
Good. So we're going to make glucose. That's the purpose. So we're going to make glucose, which is a sugar, right? So we make sugar. Now, we can use this sugar now. Well, really the plants want to use the sugar for making their own tissues, right? But if we eat the plants, or even if the plants want to use this, because plants also do respiration, we could use this in respiration. So glucose is then broken down in the first step. So what's the first step? Say it again. Glycolysis. Now remember, plants can do both. We can only do this part. How much energy or how much ATP is made in glycolysis? 2. Okay, what are we going to end up producing in glycolysis? Pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid. That pyruvic acid is now going to enter the mitochondria, and it's going to go through this cycle. What is this cycle right here called? The citric acid cycle. And how much ATP can we possibly make out of the citric acid cycle? 2. But we also release something. What are we going to release? What are we going to get rid of? What's the waste? Carbon dioxide. Check it out. The CO2 is released, but guess what? The CO2 can then be used in photosynthesis, right? Okay, so this is a waste product for respiration, but it's a reactant or a needed product in photosynthesis. Okay, moving on. We skipped these two because not on your test, so we're not going to worry about that. So what is the next step after the citric acid cycle? The electron transport chain. How much ATP can I make during the electron transport chain? Say it again. 34. So altogether, how much ATP can I make during aerobic respiration? 38. What is this organelle called? The mitochondria. Okay, let's finish the equation down here. So I've got glucose plus oxygen, so C6H12O6 plus 6O2. What is the product? What are the products? What are the products for respiration? 6CO2 plus what? 6 what? 6H12 plus what? ATP. If you struggle on that, just look at the reactants from photosynthesis. They're opposite. All right, now going back to the electron transport chain. What does the electron transport chain need? What does it need to go? Oxygen. What does the electron transport chain release as waste? Water. Check it out. The oxygen that we need in the electron transport chain is the waste from photosynthesis, from the light-dependent reactions. The water that we release, or the waste from the electron transport chain, that water is actually a reactant or needed in the light-dependent reactions. Now, going back to photosynthesis and that light-dependent reaction, the water, all we need are the hydrogen ions. That's all we need. So what do we do with the oxygen? If the chloroplast only needs the hydrogen, what does it do with the oxygen? It does what? Throw it out. Gets rid of its waste. What was that process called? It had a name, where you split water in half, get rid of oxygen to keep the hydrogen. What is that process called? Started with a P. Are we stumped? It was called photolysis or photolysis. So split water into hydrogen ions and oxygen. And remember, who does that? Who does that? Photo. Think about it. What does photo mean? Light. So what's going to actually do the splitting? What actually does the splitting? Who's this guy? The sun. So the sun is going to split water into hydrogen ions and oxygen. The oxygen is released, the hydrogen is kept and used. Okay, so that process is called photolysis. Okay, and it's done by light. All right, take another picture of that and turn in your corrections and keep that because, of course, you have a test. So while you guys are turning that in, let's talk about your test. Your test is next week on Thursday.